All right, it's time. Welcome everyone to the Over QUIC virtual interim. As always, this session is being recorded.
Your audio is not particularly good.
Okay. Is it still bad?
Yeah, that was slightly better, but still not. It still sounds a little bit like you muffled the whole microphone with a pillow or something now. Before it was like it was underwater.
Um,
Does that help at all?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Our usual meeting tips, as I just had to remind myself, if you have headphones, please use them, because otherwise the audio doesn't work very well. I think I provided an excellent example of that. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the raise of hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you are not speaking and presenting, mute your audio, turn off your video. If you are going to speak, there's about a second of latency in becoming unmuted, so press your button early. And if you're in a back and forth, you just leave your microphone on, unless, of course, you are not using a headset and or headphones, and there's a lot of echoing. We need a scribe, and this is the part where I stare uncomfortably at the camera until someone says they're going to do it. While we're sitting here uncomfortably, I did send out a doodle for attendance in Toronto. There's a link to it both on the Slack and on the list. If you're planning to attend in person, please do indicate your attendance, just to make things easier in terms of planning for our hosts and for interop people.
I'm going to suggest my usual. If you're not a chair or not an editor and didn't take notes last week, please raise your hand.
I could give it a try.
Thank you so much, Equi.
Okay.
Excellent. Have you done this before?
No, so let me.
Okay, so you don't have. So all right, let me just take a minute of time just to give you a brief thing here. You don't need to write down everything everyone says. There's a recording for that. I just cover the key points, any decisions that were made, any shows of hands, things like that. And do you know how to get to the note tool?
I'm going to the material and going there.
Well, at the top of the Meet Echo screen, at the top of the Meet Echo screen, there's a little pencil on a square that should take you to the notes.
Yeah, it's the notepad for note takers, right? That tool.
Yes.
Okay, I mean.
Are you in it?
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I thank you for volunteering a moment later. Can you just back up Yaqui a little bit if UC is having troubles?
Yep, happy to do that.
Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for your contributions. Moving along. Okay, oops, I should have made that a bigger font, sorry. This is the agenda for today. We're in the administrivia portion. We're about to get out of the administrivia portion. We're just handing the mic to Alan basically for the next hour to run through some PRs in advance of Toronto. Today is one last administrative note. I don't think there's anything else besides this, but today's the deadline for agenda requests for Toronto. Please send a message by the end of the day today, and later this week, Magnus and I will meet and finalize the agenda. There's already a preliminary agenda posted on Data Tracker if you are curious what we're going to be talking about in Toronto. All right. Would anyone like to bash the agenda? Have any comments or questions for the chairs? All right. Very well. Then I'm going to hand it off to Alan and take it away. Would you like me to keep time on anything, or do you want to manage your own time?
Yeah, maybe just keep an eye on the time if things bog down. I uploaded the slides to Data Tractor at the last minute, but I assume it's better if I share by a screen share. Oh, no, there comes my...
I got it. I'll give it to you.
Okay. Do I need to... Just, you want me to request? I forget how to do it.
Yeah.
Just next slide.
Oh,
okay. Sorry. There's not that many slides. I appreciate your willing to click this button. Okay, here we go. So this is a PR that's been up for a long time. It's gone through a couple of iterations. I think it's time to circle back to it and kind of knock it out. Just to kind of summarize the current state of the PR, Martin, I think, went through and suggested kind of using the flags of a serialization byte to represent common values of the metadata, and this table kind of summarizes that current proposal. I think it looks fine. I think Will and others just want to make sure that, does anybody have any comments on direction? I have 2 open questions on the next slide, but I'll just go, just trying to get an idea before we go, and it's kind of a big PR, and so we don't want to make changes if people are unhappy with the general direction. I did run some numbers, simulated numbers of what the compression would look like. So if you have 5 groups, each group has 1 subgroup, every subgroup has 30 objects, your group IDs are 4 bytes. Then without the fetch compression, the metadata takes 1200 bytes, but with the fetch compression suggested here, it's only 164 bytes of metadata. And then if you have 5 groups with 2 subgroups, each representing a different layer, where still there's 30 objects per group, per subgroup, so twice as many objects, it's 2400 versus 319. And I think that little star has to do with, if you look for bit 10, or for bit mask 10 about the priority field, there's a little bit in italics, which is like, is the priority of the previous object, or is it, I wrote it down as the previous object in the subgroup, or if it's the first object in the subgroup response, then it would be the previous object in the response. So the reason is, if you have 2 subgroups, you're likely alternating between priorities every object. And so it would be expensive to always, it would never be the previous one. It would always be the twice previous. And so, okay, next slide covers the open issues. Okay, yeah, so first one, so how do we want to handle priority not present? So either the previous object in the fetch, or the previous object subgroup, if any, or if there isn't a previous one in the current subgroup, it's A. It compresses, it's more complex, but it compresses much better when you have more than 1 subgroup. So that's one open question. The other open question is about whether we should use one of there's 2 remaining bits in a 8-bit field that we haven't used yet. And one of them is, should we use one to signal that it's object ID 0? Martin observed that this only saves at most 1 byte per group, which is true. But if you have, I think some folks are envisioning datagram tracks that have 1 object per group, which means you're really saving 1 byte per object. And so that's an open question. Do people want to use one of bits for this, or do we not want to use a bit for this? So I'll pause and let people jump in the queue and offer their thoughts.
Yeah, just like to further justify my point. I mean, like, it isn't just sort of arbitrarily lopping off that thing. Like, it allows the object ID encoding bit to be a single bit rather than having 3 code points and 2 bits, which just creates weird error conditions and all the rest. So like, it's a lot of complexity in my view, a lot. I mean, it's a relatively complex encoding if we want to support this ID 0 case. So I'm taking that from the perspective of an implementer. The other thing I want to note is that, so the PR does not reflect all this bitmap stuff, right? Like that's
not in its current form.
Yeah, it's all in the discussion. The original thing was just a bunch of different code points that didn't have the individual properties were not mapped to individual bits necessarily, and that was kind of what you're talking about now. Okay.
Yes, and I will note, I don't know, we have other places in the spec where we sort of use bits, but we don't say that we're using bits. And that was based on feedback from the working group. But I think as we've added more code points, some people are starting to say, like, why aren't we describing everything in terms of bit masks? So at some point, we'd like to get some thoughts on that as well. But I think at least if people like the bit mask approach for fetch, then we'll roll with that. Will.
Yeah, I was just expressing that if we have 2 code points left, we should try to use them, and we should basically look at what are the most common encodings people expect that are not covered by this encoding scheme, and obviously allocate those 2 points to those. So it was really a question for those who've built fetch-based responses, which I think is just the Osgood University team, but I'm not sure. Maybe Mike, you have something there. And could we use one of those bits to optimize a known good fetch serialization pattern? That's my first comment. My second question is, I didn't go ahead. Martin put this idea up as a better way to do it. I then wrote that table up to say, well, this is what it would look like. How does this work? Do you just want to agree here, and then as you merge the PR, you make the change, or do you want me to implement it, make the change in the PR, and then we go through another revision cycle?
I mean, we need to make the assuming there's agreement here, we need to make the change in the PR and get it reviewed. If you feel like you want to do it, happy to defer to you. If you feel like you're too busy and you want the editors to do it,
I've got
that is our job.
shows for the next 10 days. So if you want it done in the next 10 days, I suggest you do it. If you're willing to wait out, I'm happy to do it afterwards.
Okay, well, we can take it offline. The most important is getting the directional signal. I will say, at least in terms of like, is it common or not common? And we know that there's going to be an object ID 0 very likely in every group, and we already expressed that bit in datagrams already, like datagrams in response to subscribe, I think. So it's kind of a signal that maybe we should use a bit for that, but I hear what Martin's saying too. So I'm not sure. Victor.
Yeah, so the thing I wanted to say is that our constraints for things like, let's say, compressing datagrams and compressing fetch are very different. In datagrams, one, in terms of the goals, which is to say in datagrams, we really have to compress them because we have an MTU to fit. But the other thing is, so imagine you're really forwarding fetch. You're basically constrained. You basically, let's say you have some things that says like, I'm not sending extensions on the subgroup or fetch. You can only do this if like your upstream says that, and then you have to propagate that bit from upstream to downstream, which usually you would propagate object by object. And the reason I'm saying is like, most relays will probably never use this because most relays will be like, oh, I don't know whether I'm going to have extensions here or not. So, or I don't know what the object IDs are going to look like. So from that perspective, it's a bit more tricky. And I'm not sure there's that much value added in that regard.
Okay, I think what you're talking about is there's a bit in the subgroup header when you're responding to a subscription that says, will there be extensions in any object in this subgroup?
Well,
but
that's what...
In fetch, it's always object by object, whether it has extensions or not. In the proposal here.
Yes, but my understanding is that there is like a bit for... Oh, it's always object by object. Okay. Yeah, that is less bad. Okay. Sorry, okay. I got confused.
That's okay. It's confusing. I agree. Will? Will?
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be there.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm not hearing. I feel strongly about, or not strongly, but I'm inclined on question 1 here to make it be sort of 1B here. unless somebody's going to say, no, that's a bad idea. I really don't want that. I don't think it's that hard to implement. And I'm sort of up in the air on whether we want to do 2. I think I've heard Martin say no and Will say yes, and that doesn't seem like a strong inclination either way. So I'm not sure what to do.
I just wanted to say, I think something that was a little bit unclear in your presentation was that this is specifically for fetch streams.
I'm sorry.
Not
yes,
it-
this
not
is
it- not
only, we're
anything
only
else.
talking about fetch
Yeah.
streams.
Not datagrams, not subgroup streams, any of that stuff. I don't really care about 1A versus 1B very much, although 1A is easier. So like as an implementer, like let's just make it easy. And then yeah, I don't know, whatever. And yeah, I've already said my piece on 2. Thanks.
Okay. I guess we will update the PR. Yekui?
Yeah, on item 1, I feel that item B is sort of would save bytes in more cases, more efficient, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's true. And if you look, I thought about, if you go back, I mean, you don't have to flip back to the previous slide, but the second example where there are 2 subgroups that have different priorities, it essentially doubles the overhead if you have if 1A is the scheme versus 1B. So like 1B compresses better. It doesn't seem super complex to me. So I think we'll go with that. I'm sort of torn on this object ID 0, and so I think I'll update the PR, or we'll do it without that. And if somebody wants to come and say, no, it's super important that we add it, then we can. Suhas?
On the second one, which is the object ID 0 bit, I think if it helps bring consistency across subscribes and fetch, when someone says object ID 0 means that's what it means, and having 2 different interpretations at 2 different places lead to ambiguity, then I would go with having it consistently treat the same concept similarly across different things. If not, it should be okay.
I think the concepts are a little bit different. Like fetch is just a little bit different. Like the bits are somewhat different. Like, so I don't know that we'll ever get true consistency, but we did sort of. I don't know. I guess I'm looking to people who it really only benefit. Where I see the main benefit is people who want to fetch datagrams, and they care about how big that response is, and they're going to send datagrams 1 per group. That's the only use case that really helps. So, do you think that's how you're going to do it?
Because we do implement fetch for audio streams, which was sent as datagrams, but it still comes as a streams on the other end.
Yeah.
Like fetch is always stream.
Fetch is in a stream. My question is, do you care about? Do you send those datagrams 1 object per group?
Yeah.
And then do you care that when you're fetching them, if there is 1 extra byte per object of metadata or not?
For fetch, really, I don't care, because the important thing is that for subscribe, when you're sending, I want to fit in the MTU. That's the only thing I care about. For fetch, since there's no MTU considerations, that decision does not make a go or no go. Choice.
Okay, I'm inclined to say no, and we won't do this. And to Will's point, we should allocate the bits. We can always allocate them in V2.
Right.
If we come up with something else. And so saving a couple doesn't feel horrible. All right, I think I have all the signal unless somebody else wants to say anything on this. All right, next slide.
Yeah, just to summarize. So 1B and
no on 2.
Yeah. So if
so Yaki, please note that in the minutes. Okay, I want to talk about 1159, which is a proposal. We currently have 5 or 6 messages that end in _error. They all have the identical formats. So this PR takes all of them and says there's only 1 message. It's called request error. And you send it in whenever there is an error to the request. Now, the one piece you would then lose is the type information. So like today, subscribe error encodes that it was an error for a subscribe, and it has a request ID in it. And if that request ID was not a subscribe, then you have some sort of error. But like this is no longer possible. So it's correlated only on the request ID. there was some remapping of code points when this happened, I believe. There's essentially a range of request error codes that are common for all messages, things like unauthorized. And there are then some messages which had message specific error codes, like this error can only happen in fetch. And I believe we sort of allocated those into like, bands, like if it's a 100, then that is a fetch specific code, or a 200. And I don't know, Martin, you can jump in and clarify. So we did not change the semantics of any error code. It's just a different way of transmitting it, and it requires less code to do it. And it reduces the size of the specification significantly, re-specifying over and over again the same thing. So does anybody want to comment here or have any objections? Yikwi.
This sounds a very good cleanup to me.
All right, thanks. Suhas?
Yeah, from the high level idea, this makes sense to me. But to be very frank, I have not read 1159. Some of that I missed this. I'll provide my comments on the issue. But a very high level from your explanation makes sense.
Okay. Yes, as this is a design change, we will need your approval in order to land it. So yes, please review. Okay, there were some comments on there. I'll just sort of make note about some people this was an opportunity that caused a reviewer of the PR to read all of the error codes we have, and it sparked conversation about which error codes we have and which ones we need and what they mean. And we would just like to separate any of that discussion from what's going on in this PR. So if you have comments about error codes, please make sure there are issues for them. We will address them as a working group. But I think it's very orthogonal to this PR, which is about something else. Okay, if there's nothing else here, we can roll on to the next slide. Suhas, are you still in the queue? No comment. Okay. This is not a PR, it is an issue, which is a proposal for a similar consolidation for request OK, which is like a very simple request OK. This cannot replace all of the OK messages we have today, because several of the OK messages have other fixed fields in them that are specific to that message. And per our discussion last time, we don't plan to parameterize all of them. So this message would be used to replace publish namespace OK and subscribe namespace OK, which today contain no parameters. It's only the request ID. If I'm pretty sure that's true. So it kind of has so it would take two messages and replace with one, and it would add parameters there, which sort of gives us a future extensibility point if we need it. I don't think that's a huge win, but it just sort of would happen naturally by putting it there. My main motivation for doing this is less about consolidating those messages, and it's more about another issue that has been open for a while, which is that when you send a subscribe update, there is no signal that comes back from the publisher that it has processed your subscribe update successfully or unsuccessfully. And once we have request error, I know what to do if the subscribe update is unsuccessful, which is I can send a request error for that. Although I guess we should have some discussion about if subscribe update fails, maybe it should trigger a subscribe done. But if the subscribe update is successful and we would like to acknowledge it, I want to use this message. So that's kind of the plan. We're not going to touch subscribe OK, publish OK, or fetch OK, because they are all different in their own special ways. So the question is, do people have feedback on this before we make a PR and sort of drive in this direction? Will.
Yes. Just a question. What is it that's making subscribe OK, publish OK, and fetch OK such that they can't be accommodated with a generic request OK plus parameters?
I mean, they could.
Right? We got these two classes of OK messages now, and I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, the answer goes back to the discussion we had at our last meeting about sort of extensibility and common values and minimal encodings and all of those things. And so, I mean, can I replace those 3 OK messages with a single generic request OK and make everything a parameter? Yes, I can. But at least for sure, Cullen was strongly opposed and commented as such on this issue. Other people maybe as well. So I don't know that it jives. I don't know that we have consensus on the extension proposal from 2 weeks ago, but I don't know that consolidating everything jives with the proposal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yekwi.
To me, as I said in the issue discussion, I support this proposal. To me, this is somewhat similar to the previous one. It's consolidating something and cleaning up the spec and reduce the spec thing. And by the way, it also resolves some issues. That's why I'm supporting it.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, I support this. I'm sympathetic to Will's desires, but I don't want to get this issue / PR sucked into the whole parameters discussion. I think if the parameters discussion ends up shaking out where we parameterize approximately everything, then we can extend request OK to cover everything. Until then, let's just get this, bank this win, and then wait for the other thing to shake out.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined the same way, which is kind of how it happened with request error, right? It used to be request errors were also slightly different. And then over time, they all morphed and it's like, oh, geez, they're all the same. Let's capture the win now. So I think it's sort of the same here. Like if it shakes out, it does. But if people decide they want bespoke errors, that's also fine. Suhas.
Just more of a clarification question than anything. So if we decide to go with request OK as a generic thing for at least these 3 messages for now, and then we decide some of these messages might have some things that need to be specified in the response. So then we move it out. Like I just want to understand before we land this.
Well, there's 2 options. One is we can make them parameter. We can make that thing a parameter, in which case we don't have to change request OK.
Right. If it's
or we say no.
Other case, yeah.
Or we say like no. Subscribe or publish namespace or subscribe OK like needs something and it's not parameterized. So I don't know. There's lots of different ways to spell things.
Yeah, I was just trying to think: should the design the process here should be saying that if we go with your consolidated request OK and request error messages for every response message that comes in, should we have something that identifies the type and then you say some of those things are mandatory and some of those things are parameter, and then you'll have only 3 messages but more logic inside that versus you have 15 messages. 15
I think I see what you're saying, which is that like we say that the beginning of say every OK message begins with request ID parameters. And then it would be type request ID.
Yes.
Number of parameters. And then if the type is not
if that requires,
if the type says there are more fields, they will come after the parameters. And then, I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, honestly, like it's a little bit of a spelling issue. My main interest in pushing this is really to get the subscribe OK issue fixed without adding a new message. That's like my main goal.
Subscribe response to subscribe update. Right. Yeah. I'm just trying, because I agree with Will that if you are going this, if you can make it happen where the extensibility can also be considered in the design, then we definitely don't need 15 OKs and 15 error messages. We can just have 2 messages and we'll be okay.
I'm going to just repeat a comment from Victor in the chat, which is that you don't need the type, which is kind of true because you can infer it from the request ID. However, if you're wrong, bad things can happen because you can deserialize too many fields. You can desynchronize things. This could result in potential privacy problems because the request A is now being parsed as request B, or there could be request smuggling. So I think I do like strongly typing it.
I would prefer that. Yes. Just again, that's thought for you to think about it. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll make this proposal. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as what Suhas said, although I kind of like it. Does anybody want to, other than Suhas, does anybody want to put please do it that way or don't do it that way?
At least from what I heard is that both Will and Martin wanted something like that. No, at least consolidating, not the design specific things, but unless I'm misquoting them.
Okay. Martin also comments that the message length prevents smuggling problems, which is correct. So you're correct that the type doesn't need to be there. So I guess the question is, it's only a question of whether we reorder the fields in the other OK messages to put parameters first in this PR or not. Does anybody have a strong, does anybody have a strong feeling?
I would, my suggestion would be like, let's make a PR with that proposal. And I think it's easy to go for people to comment and get to something that will work. And
Okay, I can also make it as two. I can do it as two PRs. I can do one that just adds this, and then a second one which reorders it that shows what the delta would be. Maybe we'll do it that way. And then people
let's do that.
Separately. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeku?
Yeah. I got the question you asked when you refresh it. So it seems that there is an option to, with some of those messages with the fields reordered, meaning then the order of different parameters, some of them would be earlier at the beginning, some of them would be later. So by my feeling is that design consistency here is probably good, meaning don't do this reorder for certain messages.
Yeah, it's not that we would reorder for some and not others. It's the messages we're talking about replacing. There's not anything there right now to reorder. There's no fields at all. Okay. But I hear the consistency message. Martin.
First of all, as just a chair note, you're 2 minutes over time for this segment, but that's whatever you want to do. I don't understand. So, like, this proposal has the parameters first. Are you proposing that in subscribe OK you would also move the parameters to the front?
I think what Suhas was saying was every OK message starts like what is shown on the screen. And then if it happens to be in response to a subscribe, fetch, or publish, although, you know what, actually, I dislike that because at least in my implementation, the parser is different from where knowing what the type of the thing is. So I would at least still include a type. I think maybe the easiest thing, especially for over time, is I'll write a PR and people can say if they like it or not.
Like I would propose that we just stick with what you have here, which is taking the easy win, and then like changing the other OK messages is like very fraught. The whole parameter thing needs to be figured out. And I think once the rubble settles on parameter, then we can revisit request OK and see if it can expand.
Okay. That sounds fine to me. And I think the next slide might be on parameters. So I will make at least
an individual,
one,
of course.
Okay. I'll make one, if not two PRs to address this in the next week or so. Okay. Moving on. Next slide. There we go. Okay. So this PR is my attempt to implement what was discussed at the last interim. And I'm open to feedback, but this is how I have interpreted it. So I made parameters for group order and subscriber priority. And I also defined one for subscription filter. So that you can see the definition of subscription filter there. It is identical to what is currently on the wire in subscribe and publish OK. And in this PR, it is used not as a parameter, but that structure is inline, meaning that there is no wire change to subscribe or publish OK in this PR. I moved the definition, but the bits are in the same spot. The subscription filter is passed in a parameter in subscribe update, which means you can send a subscribe update that does not touch the filter if you just want to change the priority, or if you just want to change the group order, or if you just want to change forward or anything else about the subscription, but not the filter, you can now do that, which was not previously possible. While I was in this section, I went ahead and added another code point for a new filter type, which is called no filter, which had been asked for, but I realized is kind of orthogonal to this proposal because you can't subscribe update to no filter because that violates our you can't widen rule. So that is there. So the next, let's go on to the next slide. So this might be a little bit more of an eye chart than I hoped for. This is what all the messages look like in the PR. So if you just zoom in on subscribe, for example, it's got request ID, the full track name. It still has the forward flag inline. And then it has the subscription filter inline, and then it has params. And then the other one I would say to look at most closely is subscribe update on the far right there, which now just contains the forward flag and the parameters. Oh, I got slide control. How about that? Not that I know how to use them. So that's kind of the main deal. And you'll notice that group order doesn't show up anywhere in here. Subscriber priority doesn't show up anywhere in here. Those are always passed as parameters. I will maybe highlight, if you can tell on this chart, there are some that are in italics. Content exists, largest location, and expires, those are my likely next targets for parameterization, but I didn't do it in this PR. But I kind of view that as the final state. So next slide, which I will do myself if it works. Okay. So I have a bunch of questions based on what's in the PR. So one of them is, should we allow the relative filter types, the ones that are relative to largest object? Do we want to allow those in publish OK and subscribe update? It's the spec is currently silent, but as I wrote this PR, I was like, oh, it's weird that you can't, if you say publish OK latest group, the latest, you were told the latest group and publish, but it may be different by the time the publisher gets your publish OK. And you have no way of learning what it is today. And so I wrote down in the PR, like, no, you can't do this. But then I was like, maybe we should allow it. Maybe it's not a big deal that you can't get largest back. So I have a lot of questions. Should we take them one by one, or should I just like walk? I'm gonna just walk through everything on the slide, then people can talk about whatever they want. The way I have specified this, you cannot change the end without, if you have an absolute range, you cannot change the end without also specifying the start. I don't think does anyone feel like it's a problem? Because another way to spell this would be, instead of having filter be the param, you could split that into start and end params. And then you could update just the end without touching the start, regardless of where the start is. But I don't know how important that is. There's something very strange of what happens. So normally when you emit a parameter, there is a very clear default or very clear interpretation. One of them, but group order is different, because when you send a subscribe with no group order, what you're saying is, I don't care. I'll let the publisher pick the group order and it'll tell me in subscribe OK what it is. And in subscribe update, it's clear, if I didn't include it, I'm not changing it. But in all the other messages, if you don't include it, because there has to be a value, it means ascending. And so I wrote this and it read kind of funky, and it seems, I don't know if people like it or people don't like it, but it's a little bit strange. For 4, do people feel good about leaving forward as inline, or would people like to see forward as a parameter? And then I mentioned expires and largest location are likely the next targets. So let me pause and let people jump in and ask questions on this. Suhas.
I think your proposal of having the subscription filter as a type there, or whatever, it makes sense. And having that in subscribe update all as a parameter makes sense too. And just going through the questions that you have here, yeah, on 3, specifically on 3, yes, there is this kind of asymmetry in the way the group order works, and we cannot, because the publisher controls the group order, we cannot default that one. And hence your subscribe OK or publish OK should be, if nothing is specified, it's by default ascending. So we should have a default, if no, for a given subscription, if there is no group order negotiated, then it should be by default ascending. If not, it's publisher picked. That could be the way I would put, regardless of.
If I mean, I think that's what will happen here,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But I guess what I'm saying is that, like, there's a difference between the subscriber. The default in subscribe is not ascending. The default in subscribe is I don't care.
Right. So I was just trying to say, if there's no negotiation happened, that means subscriber did not ask for it, then it's publisher picked.
Right, exactly. The publisher will. The publisher does not have an
Yes.
option not to say. If it doesn't say,
Right.
the publisher is saying ascending.
Right. If publisher does not have to say anything, by default it's assumed to be ascending. Like that's
That is
kind of
what
a
will
thing.
happen.
And yes, that makes sense. And I would on the 4, I would feel the forward should be left in line until we figure out what needs to be done with forward. Right now, when I was going through Cullen's presentation, I was thinking, can we make it a default of 0 or 1? It's very specific to the application, and there's nothing much you can say. Hence, leaving it inline for now makes sense. And expires and largest location, again, I don't know if there is a value for expires that would be good default value. I don't know what it means to 0.
We have a
infinity.
whole thing we need to talk about expires, which it's going to get punted to Toronto, but we will talk about it. So we won't resolve this until we resolve that.
I agree. And on the two, I don't think it would be a problem because with the new subscription filter type that you're specifying, you need to specify the start there. Without that, it makes no sense. So a subscriber can still put the same start and change the end. That's totally fine. And should the relative filter types be allowed in publish OK? I don't think so, because it's a filter. Even if someone asks for a filter, something really old or really new, it's a publisher. When we publish in the object, it basically looks at the filter and it satisfies the filters, it publishes. If not, it does not publish to the subscriber. And I don't think so that would make us not to use a filter type in the subscribe OK. Publish OK. So.
Okay, thanks. Yekui?
Yeah, also on item 3 here, I don't feel it's funky to have different default values as long as it makes sense. And regarding the subscribe, the first one, I also sort of agree with Suhas that, okay, probably that one ascending is slightly better. Then we do not need this don't care category.
The problem is that the subscriber is nominally in charge of this parameter, right? The publisher can't change it against the subscriber's wishes. It's really part of the priority algorithm, if you think about it, if you read how group order works. So,
I see. The subscriber is the one sent by the subscriber, not the publisher. Even from the publisher, then by default it's ascending.
When it comes from the publisher, like if it comes in publish, for example, it's telling the subscriber, this is the default. This is how I am prioritizing things.
I was wrong. So the first one, I think, yeah, if the subscriber subscribe you, okay, I just do it. But still, I think typically the subscriber asking for something, most time it would go in ascending group order. And
I agree. The problem is that if we make ascending the default when it's not specified, then there's no way for the subscriber to learn the publisher's preference in subscribe.
But the question is, should that be allowed? A subscriber is saying by not saying anything, is saying that I want it to be ascending.
But by the way, this is also in the existing document, because when the subscriber sends group order, there are 3 values, one of which is I don't care. So this is mirroring the existing behavior, but it's just when you moved it to a parameter, it just had this effect.
Yeah, makes sense.
All other messages only have 2 values, ascending or descending, but subscribe has 3.
Maybe should we make it 2 then to avoid this confusion?
I mean, I am okay with it, but it means there's no way for subscribe to use publisher preference for group order, because you can't learn what the publisher preference is. Because subscribe OK will just tell you what you told it. But that's how it works today, right? If I say subscribe ascending, I'll get subscribe OK ascending. Tim?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Did you have more sauce? No. Okay, Tim.
In the queue, I'll join the queue. Thanks.
Sorry, is my
Tim,
audio working?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I had to open my lid. So we're making changes so that we actually pass publisher parameters and make it available on the Edge relay for subscribers. So technically we can provide publish parameters to subscribers if they want it. So when you said there's no way for a subscriber to know what the publisher's order is, I think there is a way, because we're making that possible.
I suppose that's true. We could change the semantic of what it means in subscribe OK. Subscribe OK just communicates the publisher's preference, not what the actual. So like the subscriber could say descending, and then the publisher could say ascending. But what that means is that the subscription is descending, but the publisher would prefer it to be ascending, but it's up to the subscriber to change it. That's also funky, but it's totally, we can do it that way. That is different than what the specification says today, though.
Yeah, I was just making a point that we technically do have parameters that are available that the publisher sends that we can make available to subscribers. Subscribers can do whatever they want with those parameters. They can change, adapt, or not. And I suppose it's up to the Edge relay towards that specific subscriber to provide the groups in the order in which it's asking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's always incumbent on the publisher to do what the subscriber wants here, except when publisher starts publishing before it hears from the subscriber. That's the only place where it gets sole control. Go ahead, Suhas.
I think if a publisher would not like a subscriber's requested group order, then it should be returning an error, not an OK.
I mean, remember that group order is, I don't think you should be able to fail this. It's group order in subscription is part of a priority system. That's the only thing it impacts. So there shouldn't ever be an error. Like if I want them descending, I want them ascending, like that's my preference. You got to do it. Like, I don't care if it's different. You wanted priority 10, I wanted priority 1. Guess what? I win. I'm the subscriber. I'm in charge here. Like,
yeah, like I'm just trying to say, like, wouldn't it cause into this loop of I say ascending, you say descending? No, I still need ascending, you say still descending.
No. The subscriber is always final. It's only informative what the publisher, like the publisher's informing. I mean, if this is actually true, maybe what we should change is like making it maybe 2 different parameters. The one coming from the subscriber is called group order, and the one coming from the publisher is like publisher group order preference, to make it clear that what the publisher says has no impact. It's just informing of what the preference is.
Okay, so this will give a chance for subscriber to an update if needed to the publisher's version. Preference.
Yeah, right. Okay. But if the publisher really cared, or the subscriber really cared, it should have said so when it sent subscribe.
Like, that's true.
Like,
yes. Yeah. Okay.
Like, I don't care. And then the guy says, "Oh, no, okay, we're going to do ascending." He's like, "Well, then I do care. I want this."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I've got a lot of signal there. I know we're over time and we're not going to have enough time to talk through everything in group. Does anybody want to comment on any of the other issues? Otherwise, please review the PR. It's only been up a couple of days. It'll stay up a while for people to evaluate it, but it closes a ton of issues. And so, it sort of moves us forward. So I'd like to get it, eyes on it soon. So any other comments? Martin.
I'm just coming on as chair. If do you not want to open the new group subject?
No, we have 10 minutes. Unless you wanted to talk about something else, I think we should probably just. I can go through my slides quickly. We may not have time for the full discussion, but people, I don't know. The PR is already getting pretty full of comments, so I don't know, but we'll try. Okay, new group request. So since the last time we presented this PR, the algorithm in it changed. So the original algorithm in that PR said that a relay could only send at most 1 outstanding new group request at any one time. And that only gets reset when the group changes. Cullen convinced me that there are edge cases, and of course I forget what they were, but he showed me some slide deck and I was like, okay, I believe you. There will be a case where somebody wants a group and it's going to be lower, or it's going to be somebody wants to send a new group and it needs to go through even when there's already 1 outstanding if it's larger. We have updated the algorithm to say that as long as the new group request, either if it's 0, which means I know I need a group, but I don't know what the current group is, or I want a group and it's larger than the one that relay has outstanding, it'll send another one. Any change in the group ID will clear that. Will clear all the outstanding ones. So this does sort of mean that I can write there's no way to, there's less protection that the relays offer now in the new updated algorithm than there was previously in the original PR in terms of how many new group requests they might see. because before there was at most one. So if the relay was, or if the original publisher was hanging on for 2 seconds before it was going to issue a new group, it wouldn't see any more NGRs. But with this, I can as a subscriber, I can just send, I could put myself in a loop, subscribe, update, group plus, and I can send unlimited, limited only by the maximum number of requests I can send before I get credit. Tim.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. So just to clarify, if we receive, so the logic is changing from the greater the new group request we send that, it's going to change to where if we have an outstanding new group request, they're all suppressed. Is that what you're saying? That includes 0. So if I receive on an edge relay, I receive 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, but I already have an outstanding group request for the 0. Do I send all the other ones, or do I suppress them?
At least the way it's written right now, you'll send one for all each of, if you got 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, you would send 4 new group requests up.
So what would help here to prevent denial of service, especially considering I can be getting this from like 1,000 clients?
And we can roll to the next slide because I think I brought that up there, but actually I have control. But I think the answer is like, we can't really rely on the relay to prevent messages from arriving at the original publisher at all. And part of that is because of fetch. I can almost always craft a fetch message that the relay will not have in its cache. And the only thing the relay can do with that is send it back to the original publisher. So like, I think the answer is like original publishers just need to be able to handle messages they don't like. I kind of wish the answer was better.
I agree. In fact, I think I brought that up on one of my notes, but fetch does suffer from the same problem. And in fact, any parameter that's supposed to make its way, or any control message that needs to make its way to the publisher, is going to suffer from a denial of service issue with multiple subscribers.
In the existing draft, I believe that is only fetch, because subscribes will normally be coalesced at a relay. Nothing else goes through.
Well, subscribe
update is hop by hop. It's never supposed to go to the original, or shouldn't be an expectation that it goes to the original publisher.
New group request goes.
What's that?
New group is now
yes,
a parameter.
With this PR, subscribe update is not exactly passed through. There's special rules at the relay that said, if I got a subscribe update, then maybe I need to send one, but it's not exactly 1 for 1. So I agree that this is changing that. But before, fetch was always a message that could go to the OP. Now maybe that's a separate issue that we need to address. I don't know.
I would love to hear from these people who are coming out with these production MOQ deployments, but I'm curious how they're handling denial of service in multiple fetches. I mean, I'm planning to basically restrict how many fetches you can do at once, outstanding fetches. It's like, there's no way we're going to let you just fetch 10 million times, or maximum requests, right? It's like,
there's already a maximum number of requests.
I know, but that covers, that's not the same thing. I mean, fetch should have its own. I mean, it should be like,
there is an issue for that, by the way, if you'd like to comment on it. I'm just going to roll to the next slide and just go whatever is there, and then I'll grab you, Suhas, off the queue. Okay, so these are the things that were raised on the issue that I think we can talk through. I imagine we're going to run out of time here. One of them is like, dynamic groups is a very special, the way we've done this with like the publisher has this flag, which is, this like must forward publish parameter that goes all the way to the subscriber to informative capabilities. There's an RFC PR that's up that talks about track level extensions. So that's another potential way to handle this, although it currently also uses parameters in some form. So like, do we want or need something more generic than just like, we're adding this one special flag that exists in MOQ v1? Another thing that was raised is publisher acknowledgement or rejection of the NGR. So like there's issues with like somebody sends a new group request with like a completely bogus value. Like, I want a new group 1 million. And then that would potentially block new group. If an original publisher discarded that, it was like, I'm not going to process that. I'm going to do something different. The relay would never know, and it would block other new group requests that were legit from arriving. So do we need a formal acknowledgement or rejection that, yes, I got your NGR and a new group is coming for you, or a new group is never coming for that thing, so forget about it. Another question is about extensibility. So it's not clear to me how we would ever add another feature to MOQ-T like this, either via a message or via params, because if you have a chain of relays, they would all need to sort of negotiate this new version. Like if I add whatever, new group request 2, I can negotiate that with the first relay, but then the first relay needs to negotiate with the second relay and so on. And there's no real way of knowing that's actually going to work. So I'm not sure. That's sort of not necessarily specific to this feature, but like it's just something that's been brought up. And then also we just talked about DOS. So that's everything I want to information for that I want to give you. Go ahead, Suhas.
I think I support the change in the algorithm because we are trying to deal with two things. An algorithm that's not working, if that change is not done, which will happen in the case where the scenarios where the original publisher thinks it's already publishing the newest group, and hence because the new group request will never make, and having this when the new group request with a greater group ID, letting it go to the publisher will get it out of the deadlock situation. That's the reason it published this algorithm fixes. Compared to that, with a denial of services attack, again, an application that's doing this one usually will not do this one, even if something like this happened where original publisher is bombarded either because of the fetch request or something like new group. An application that should be dealt at a layer above MOQ, and I don't think so that's a concern here. And for the 4 bullet points you listed, capability exchange, I think it's a powerful tool, but it's also something that starts developing what you call it as a sub protocol inside a protocol. And I would like to really write it down before we even change this PR to accommodate that one. And the second thing about do we need to have a control message for every new group request? That's the whole point why the current design does not do that, is because in existing RTP kind of conferencing where we need something like this is the signaling hell. A signaling storm hell where this needs to be acknowledged, like every 4 request gets acknowledged, and that's why things don't scale. And the way we solved in your PR is that basically saying that starting a new group basically is an acknowledgement for something that happened in the control plane. For the scenario where someone uses a bogus group, your PR clearly says that a publisher should cannot ignore the requests, but it will publish whatever. From his logic, the next group number is regardless of whatever the group request came with. Someone can come with 1 million, but I can do next +1 or +3 based on publisher's knowledge, and that will clear up everything. So you'll never get stuck in the situation. If a publisher does not do that, again, it's then not a MOQ level issue; it's an application level issue that needs to be resolved at a different layer. And extensibility, again, this is not specific to this PR. I think it applies to in general everything. And I put it on the DOS vector using 0. I did not come to a conclusion that's the DOS, but I would like to understand it better. Other than that, the other 3, I have very clear understanding of what is needed and what's asked.
Can I just clarify one of the things you said about acknowledgement? Are you saying that it's explicitly a non-goal to get acknowledgement messages from the updates? So you're saying that would break something if we added that?
No, it will impact scalability to a great extent, because every new group request has to be acknowledged, versus the way your current proposal says is that when a new group comes on data plane, it's an implicit acknowledgement for the new group, the set of new groups.
Well, if we're planning to add acknowledgements to subscribe update anyway, that's going to happen independent of this, assuming we continue to use subscribe update. So hopefully that additional message is not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the hop by hop message, not an end-to-end.
It's a hop by hop, yes.
Okay. That seems okay to me, yeah.
So the one comment I see in the chat from Mike English is, do we want to talk about alternative solutions that don't require, this says new verb. We didn't actually add a new verb, but we added special relay logic. And I'm not prepared today, but I could make slides. So this is the high level bit that I'm trying to get. Like, this PR seems close-ish. We could sort of land it now or very close to now. But is there like a big picture different change that people want to look at or consider before we move forward here? So I don't know, Mike, if you want to jump in, or chairs, if you have a read on this. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this is something that we had kind of talked about during the hackathon in Madrid, that like there are at least a couple ways that you might be able to get new groups at using just kind of application level features. If you control both ends, if you like say, okay, certain things have special meaning to the publisher, then you can get things to flow through a series of fan out relays in such a way to get this behavior without having to add new requirements to relays, which to me seems preferable. Yeah, I am not prepared to go into detail on.
Well, and
on
we're
those
out of time
proposals,
today
but,
anyway.
like, yeah.
I don't know. Like, I guess my inclination is to give you some time in Toronto to present it, and we'll make a decision there. Is everyone okay with that plan?
Yeah, at least, yeah, I'm totally okay with that plan. If there's at least we had like two proponents there, like Will and Mo, saying that they would want to do something like generic application layer feedback, and they, after their discussion, they came to conclusion that what your proposal is better. And again, if Mike has something that he's thinking, definitely we should give him a chance to present before we conclude one way or the other.
Okay, so I think the takeaway here is we're going to await Mike's thing before we move forward. Although, Alan, maybe you've gotten some feedback that allows you to refine this PR.
I don't know that I got any strong feedback here that requires a change, but maybe the minute taker can remind me of something else.
No, that's fine. Lovely. Okay. Thank you, Yiqui, for taking notes. It looks like you did a really good job for what it's worth. Mike, please ask for email us for some agenda time with how much time you need for Toronto. And once again, today is the deadline for you to ask for agenda time in Toronto. So please do so if you're going to. With that, we'll see you all in 2 weeks in Canada.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.